I am going to walk you guys through the materials that we'll be using. For yarn of choice, I am using a medium weight yarn, so I would recommend you use a medium weight or a lightweight yarn. You don't want to go too heavy with the yarn, so the bigger the size, the heavier the piece is going to be. You are going to need some measurement tape to eventually take a measurement so we can have good fitting. You are going to need a crochet hook. For mine, I'm using a 3.5, so if you're using a medium weight yarn, a 3.5 is perfect for the best tension, but you can also obviously size up or size down on your crochet hook. You are going to need some scissors right into it. So this pattern is worked in an even number, right? So which basically means any number that can be divided into two. So after making a slip knot, you are going to use your hips measurement for this part. So for example, if your hips measurement is 60, you're going to divide that amount by 2, and you are going to chain a multiple of 2, I would say, until you have the half of the measurement, which in this case will be 30 inches. So you're just going to go ahead and make a long chain, making sure you're chaining with an even number. So at the end of it, you want to make sure you have a number that can be divided into 2. So after you have your chain, you are going to chain an extra one, which is going to be a turning chain. So this extra one is not an actual stitch. Right after, you are going to go into the second chain with a single crochet stitch. And to work a single crochet, you're basically going to insert your crochet hook into your chain, grab the yarn and pull through, and when you have 2 loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 2 loops. Again, to work a single crochet, you basically insert your crochet hook into the chain, grab the yarn, pull through, and when you have 2 loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 2 loops. You are now going to repeat 1 single crochet into every chain until you get to the very end. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the same amount of chains you did. So right here I am at the end of the row, and you can see that I have 1 single crochet row, which is just super straight. From here on, we are going to start row 2, which is going to be a double crochet row. So from here you're going to chain 3, and this chain 3 that we're doing is a double crochet stitch. So for the entire pattern, whenever I say chain 3, that is an actual stitch. From there on, you are going to go into the second stitch, because into the very first single crochet you already have chain 3, which is the same as a double crochet. So you're going to yarn over, and you are going to go into the second stitch, which is basically yarn over, go into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull through, and this time around you have 3 loops. You're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over and pull through the rest. Again, yarn over, go into the next stitch, grab the yarn, pull through. When you have 3 loops, you're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over and pull through the last 2 loops. And just like that, you're going to repeat 1 double crochet until you get to the very end of the row. Right after your second row, you should have something like this. So now we have a single crochet row and a double crochet row. For the next part, row 3, you're going to chain 1 and turn, and this chain 1 is again not a stitch, so which means into this very first stitch we are going to go with a first single crochet, and this is going to be a single crochet row. So from here on, you are going to repeat a single crochet until you get to the very end. So basically row 1 and row 3 are the same. So 1 is a single crochet row, row 3 is a row 2, sorry, is a double crochet row, and row 3 is a single crochet row. So repeat 1 single crochet until you get to the very end of the row. This is what we should have after the third row. So you have a single crochet row, a double crochet row, and a single crochet row. Going to start row 4 by chain, and again this chain 3 we just did is an actual stitch. That is going to be our first stitch. For this row 4, we are going to do something a little bit different from what we've been doing. We are going to work a double crochet row, but this double crochet row is going to be a little bit different from row 2. So to work our second stitch after the chain 3, we are going to yarn over and into this row 2 with a double crochet. Crochet is going to be worked by yarn over, you're going in to this first space and coming out. So you're basically yarning over, you're going in and out, a front post. From here on, you're going to grab the yarn and pull through. But when you're pulling through, you want to make sure you leave a long loop, because again, we're literally coming from row 4 all the way to row 2. So given the long loop is going to make sure the stitches. From there on, you're going to yarn over and you're going to go right into that same stitch with the front post. So you're going in and out. You're going to grab the yarn and pull through. And at this point, you should have a total of 5 loops. So right there are 5 loops. What I'm going to do from here on is I'm going to yarn over, pull through all first 4 loops. And right there I have 2 more. I am going to yarn over and pull through the last 2. On we are going to go ahead. So if you shift the stitch a little bit, you can see that right here we have a single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, single crochet. But the chain 3 we just did is our very first stitch which we are available, and this is our next available single crochet. But because we already did the front post double crochet on row 2, that already means this next single crochet is already taken. Let's just use the word taken. Means the next available single crochet is this third one, because we already have 2 stitches for row 4. So we have the chain 3 and we have this front post, which means into the third we are going to go with a double crochet into row 2 and into row 3 at the same time. So for this next row after double crochet, we are going to work another front post. And again, because we already insert another double crochet into this, which means this stitch underneath, which is this double crochet stitch, is also already taken, which means this next double crochet is going to be our next available stitch to work into. So again, you're going to repeat the front post double crochet by yarning on this available stitch with the front post. Grab the yarn and you want to make sure you pull this through. When you have 3 loops, you're going to yarn over and you're going to go back into the stitch with another front post and yarn over and pull through. You want to make sure you're pulling the yarn through again, because this is being done in row 2 to fit row 4. From there on, you have 5 loops. You're going to yarn over and pull through the first 4 loops, and when you have 2 loops, you're going to yarn over and pull through the last 2. Just like that, we have 4 stitches over 4. So we have a chain 3, which is our first stitch. We have a front post, which is our second. We have this double crochet at the back, which is our third, and this is going to be our fourth. So from here on, we are going to work another double crochet 2, which means into this, if you bend, I'm going to show you guys how I easily identify where to insert my double crochet. So right here we have a chain 3 and we have a skip stitch. So we skip the stitch, right, because this stitch aligns with the front post we did at row 2, and then we did a double crochet, which means this next single crochet we are going to skip because this aligns with the second front post we did. So you're going to insert your crochet hook again and you are going to bend. Honestly, it's easy to see where to insert, because if you align this front post well, you can see it automatically covers the single crochet space, which means you know you're not going into that space, you're going into the one that you can see. So this single crochet, if you straighten your row, you cannot see, so you're just going to go into the next available one, double crochet, and just like that you just finished another set. From here on, we are going to work a front post. So you're basically switching between a double crochet in row 3 and the front post in row 2. So you're going to yarn over, and of course, because there's a double crochet here, that aligns with this double crochet, which means this is already taken and this is our next available double crochet. So you're going to yarn over, go into the stitch with the front post, grab the yarn, pull through, insert with the front post again, grab the yarn and pull through. And when you have 5 loops, you're going to yarn over, pull through the first 2, and lastly yarn over and pull through the last 2. And just like that, you have 3 fronts, another front post. So again, if you count all the stitches at the end of this row, you should still have the same amount. So in my case, I had 50 stitches, right? Which means I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 50, because this does not decrease. It's just a very fat front post double crochet, but it's still the same amount of stitches. So from here on, because this front post covers this single crochet, I know this one that I can see is my next. So I'm going to insert my double crochet on there, and from there on I know this one is already taken because it aligns with this double crochet, and this is my next available double crochet. go into it with the front post, pull through. I'm gonna have 3 loops. I'm going to yarn over, go again with another front post and pull through. When I have 5 loops, I'm going to yarn over and pull through the first 4, and I'm going to yarn over and pull through the last 4. And right from there, this my next single crochet that I can see is where I'm going to insert a double crochet. And this is what your pattern should look like this until you get to the very end of the row. You are going to just go ahead and end of the row, right? So I just did my last front post right there, which means into this next double crochet is a double crochet. And because this next double crochet does align with this and the last stitch is just a chain 3, what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and insert an additional double crochet right there, because I cannot do a front post into that last stitch. So you want to keep the last stitch with a double crochet, and you're going to just go ahead and end off your row with 2 double crochets into that last stitch. For row 5 is you're going to chain 1 and turn, and we are going to repeat a single crochet row, which means into this very first space you are going to insert 1 single crochet and repeat 1 single crochet into every stitch. So the stitch, so you're going to insert a single crochet right there. You have a stitch, you are going to insert a single crochet. So you're going to just go ahead and do this until you get to the end of row 5. Coming to the end of row 5, you want to go into this chain 3 space right into the third. So right there I have 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go into the third with a single crochet, and that is my last stitch. Again, if you have to count your stitches just so you have the same amount, please do so, because you really want to make sure you keep the amount of stitches that you have at the very beginning. From here on, we are going to start row 6, which is going to be a double crochet, front post double crochet row as well, just like row 4. So you're going to chain 3 and turn, and from here on we are going to go into this next single crochet, and again the chain 3 we just did is also a stitch. So right there we have 2 double crochets. For the next row we are going to do a front post double crochet like we did for row 4, sorry. You're going to yarn over, but this time around we are going into this double crochet right here. So you're going to yarn over and you're going to go with your front post into that double crochet, the yarn, and you're going to pull this, obviously like I mentioned. You're going to yarn over and go right into that same stitch with another front, and you want to make sure you pull the stitch so you're using a very loose tension for this front post part. And from here on you're going to pull through the first 4 and yarn over and pull through the last 2. And just like that you have 1, 2, 3 stitches. And again, just the same way row 4 as well, lap this, you cannot see the stitch, which means you're going to skip this and you're going to go into this with your double crochet, just like that, which means right after this double crochet we have a front post. So you're not doing a front post on top of a front post, you're doing it in between. So right here we have a front post and we have a double crochet. We will be doing the front post into the double crochet and not into the front post. So you're going to yarn over double crochet, pull through, yarn over, go into the double crochet again, and you pull through again. From here on, yarn over and pull to the first 4, yarn over and pull to the last 2. And right there you have the second stitch, which means you are going to skip this because this overlaps with the stitch you just created, and into this one that you can see your double crochet. And I really hope this is as easy. I'm trying to explain this as easy as I can, but if you have any questions let me know. But you're just going to repeat this pattern until you get to the very end. So right after this double crochet, my next stitch is going to be a front post, which means I'm skipping this because I'm not doing a front post on the front post, and also because this front post does align with this double crochet I just created. So they are the same. Yarn over, going to this double crochet with a front post double layer or double skip this stitch and go into this with a double crochet. And from here on, you can see at the back that we are skipping one, insert a double crochet, skipping one, insert a double crochet, inserting a double crochet. Repeat this until you get to the very end of the row. I am coming to the end of row 6, so this last front pose. I have my chain 3 space, which means I am going to insert one double crochet into that space, a single crochet, sorry. I'm going to insert a double crochet to end off the row, and just like that, row 6 is complete. For row 7, you are going to chain 1 and turn. Row 5, which is a single crochet row. So into this very first stitch, you are going to insert one single crochet and just repeat one single crochet into every stitch. And also you want to make sure at the very end of this row as well, you still have the same amount. You're keeping the same amount of stitches you have until you get to the very end of the row. And guys, at the end of row 7, you should have something like this, and this is honestly what the pattern is made up of. So from here on, you are going to repeat row 2 all the way to row 7. So because I am using 2 different colors, at the end of row 7, I am going to switch to my second color, and at the end of row 7, I'm going to switch back to this color, and I'm going to repeat row 2, row 3, all the way up to row 7. I will try to leave a time lapse in the video in the description so you guys can go back to the rows easily, because I know it's not so easy for you to get this pattern after one row, but I promise you after your second set you are going to just nail the pattern. It's super easy. Hey guys, so I finished my back panel. I did a total of 7 sets, and again, you guys know from row 2 to row 7 is 1 set in total. So the measurement for this is currently at 11 inches. You're going to subtract 4 inches from your desired top measurement, and then whatever amount you get, that is what you're going to do. So for my desired top measurement is going to be 16, which means that's the reason why my panel is all the way up to 12 inches and even more, but then again, that's not necessary. But yeah, you can see that it can also be 12 inches because the 4 additional inches is going to be done with the band, like you guys have already seen. You are going to repeat the same exact step for your You're going to repeat the same exact step for your front panel. The only difference is the front panel is going to be a little bit shorter because we will be doing something different around the neckline. What you're going to do is you are going to take how deep you want the neckline to be. So I'll show you guys the measurements. So you're going to take how deep you want the neckline to be. So let's say, for example, you want the neckline to be maybe 5.5 inches deep. You are just going to go ahead and count how many rows that is, or even just start working with the front panel. So you're going to chain the same amount of chains and then work your way up. Let's say it's from this 12 that I have right here, which means it's going to be 7 inches. So I'm going to work a 7 inches panel, and then I'll come back and show you guys what the next step is, because the remaining 5 inches will be worked separately to divide the neckline. So this is what my front panel looks like. You can tell that I did do less rows. So I now have 4 sets, but in the back panel I did a total of 7 sets, which means I have 3 more sets to add to the front panel. The front panel and the back panel needs to be the same length. They are going to be the same size and the same length. So you are going to firstly we are going to mark the center of the panel with stitch markers. So you're going to fold the panel into 2, and this is just so you know exactly where to stop when it comes to the neckline. So fold your panel into 2 and you are going to mark the center of the panel with a stitch marker. So right after you're going to mark that center stitch with a stitch marker, you're counting 4 stitches. So basically where the center stitch is, you want to leave your finger there and you're counting 4 stitches to the left, and you're going to grab your second stitch marker and you're counting 4 stitches to the right. So you're basically counting the same amount. So you want to still make sure you mark that center stitch, and you're going to just count the same amount you counted to the left is the same amount you're counting to the right. So right there you have your two stitch markers marked, right? So now I'm going to do the neck panel separately, because again, this pattern, you guys know, is literally as I go. I'm making up the pattern as I go, so I need to work on it first for me to know exactly how I can explain this to you guys. But I am just going to go back to row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, and I'm going to do that for a total of few rows, and I'll see you guys when I have that complete, because for now I honestly don't know how the pattern is going to be worked out. So this is what it looks like now. So if I put this across the back panel, it is the same length, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 set. So don't feel intimidated by the curve. It's super simple. I'll show you guys exactly how to get that done. So for the very first half of the panel, I started from the left, from the edge, working my way up to the stitch marker. But when you're working on the opposite side, you are going to start from the stitch marker to the edge. And the reason is because the pattern has two different sides. So like the front side and the back side are entirely different. So if you work the pattern on the left to the right, on the opposite side, you are going to just mix the entire pattern together, which means the front side is going to eventually turn to the back, while the back is going to turn to the front. So I wanted to just highlight that. But when you're working on the side I already have done on this clip, you can start from the edge to the stitch marker. But when you want to work the opposite side, you have to start from the stitch marker to the left, because again, the pattern is worked from the right to the left. So you have to keep the same pattern going. So you're working from the stitch marker, which is the right, and you're working to the left. So that's what I wanted to highlight. So I'm just going to reattach my yarn to the stitch marker, exactly the same exact space where I marked, and I'm going to chain 3, and I'm going to repeat row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7. And for this other row, I did a total of, I did from row 2 all the way to row 5. So row 6 and row 7 was worked differently. So you are going to repeat that. So basically repeat row 2, row 3, row 4, and row 5. And I'll see you guys. So basically row 2, row 7 with this yarn, and I'm going to switch to the opposite yarn and do row 2 all the way to row 5. And I'll see you guys when it's complete. So I just finished my fourth, well, not finished my fourth row. So this was supposed to be row 2 was a double crochet, row 3 was a single crochet, row 4 was a front post, and row 5 is a single crochet, right? So what we're going to do from the single crochet is, instead of ending the row, you are going to grab your measurement tape, and you're going to take 3 inches from this open side inwards, and that is going to be the space you're going to leave. Let me cut off this excess yarn first so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So from this side inwards, I am going to go ahead and mark 3 inches, and 3 inches for me is going to stop right here, which means I'm going to take off these 2 excess stitches that I have. And just to make sure it's the same thing with this side, all I'm going to do is just measure this, just fold the 2 and see, and you can see that it actually falls on the same side. You can also count your stitches just so you know for sure. If you 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. So you can also count your stitches. So right here I just finished row 5. I am going to cut off my yarn, but I want to mention that you don't have to do that on the right side, because the right side automatically just works easily because the pattern is worked from right to left. The only reason why I'm cutting off my yarn is because it's the opposite side. So now if I want to start, because I have to leave this 3 inches gap, but if I was supposed to go back, I am going to add an extra stitch to this side, which does not look the same, because this side does not have an extra stitch. So what I'm going to do is cut off my yarn. But then, just so you know, you will do that for one side, which I'm going to do for the left side, but you don't have to do that for the right. So don't get confused along the way and thinking you have to cut off your yarn. you don't have to cut off your yarn on this side, because right from there you're going backwards, which means you start your row right there and you end your row right there, which means row 6 started on this end, so which means you can work your way up here. I hope you guys understand. This is not too much information. But I'm going to cut off the yarn there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to reattach my yarn on the stitch that I marked, because again, because I'm working on the left, I want to work from inwards to that side, and because I'm working on the right, I'm going to work from the outside inwards. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just going to reattach my yarn, and I know for sure that after row 5 I have to repeat row 6, which is basically a chain 3. I'm going to take off the stitch markup so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. I am going to chain 3, and you know when you work in row 5 you are going to go into that second stitch with a double crochet, and the reason why you're doing that is because you have this front post which should align with this double crochet that you created, and right after you have a double crochet in between, so you're going to do again your front post, just the same pattern. And then of course, because it overlaps with this stitch, you're going to skip it and go into this stitch, and you're going to skip this, and into this you're going to insert a front post, and of course you're going to skip this stitch and you're going to go into this stitch. This is what I'm going to repeat until I get to the very edge. So right here I just finished row 6, and I'm going to do row 7 to end off the last row on this color palette before I switch to the next color. So row 7 is basically a single crochet row, so you're going to chain 1 and single crochet all the way up until the side. So you're not going all the way to the very edge, obviously, but you want to work your way up until where you started row 6, and that is going to end off the 7 rows. And you can just switch back to the other yarn and repeat the same thing for row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, and row 7. And that is honestly what the front panel is made of. Like, it's not really that complicated. And again, I'm making this pattern as I go, so I'll try to edit this in a way that it's super easy and not get too complicated for you guys. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will find a way to explain this in the best of my ability. So right now you can see that we just finished this right there. So what I'm going to do from here is just cut off my yarn, and I'm going to grab my final color for my final row, and I'm just going to repeat the same thing, honestly. Row 3, row 4, row 5, row 2, sorry, starting from row 2 all the way up to row 7. So I'm just going to change my yarn color, and I'm going to chain 3 because row 2 is a double crochet row, and I like to just again grab this edge of the yarn and just single crochet that so I can have it secure, and just repeat. So I'm gonna do that, and when I have everything complete, I'll come back and show you guys what the next step is. I finished my front panel, and I just decided to lay this across the back panel because we are going to attach these two together now. So you want to make sure that these parts of the panel are facing each other, because that is going to be the good side while this is going to be the wrong side. So you want to get that right, because if not, you are going to mess up the entire pattern. So now we are going to attach the sleeve. We are going to attach the shoulders together just the same way you would attach any piece. You can use a single crochet, you can use a slip stitch, you can use a needle, whatever you want to use. Get that done, and you are going to just attach the two shoulders of the front panel to the back panel. You also want to make sure you are aligning. Is that what it's called? I don't know, guys. Just line the panels together well. Like the two front panels, you need to line them very well. So at the end of the day, you don't have one side way longer than the other side, and because I still have my yarn attached, I am just going to use that to single crochet this first one, and I'll get the opposite one done as well. And just like that, I have the two shoulders single crochet together. So now you can put this on and decide how wide you want the armpit hole to be. So I'll suggest you do that, or what I do if I'm being too lazy is just take my armpit hole measurement and I'm going to divide that by 2. So let's say mine is going to be 14 inches. That divided by 2 will be a total of 7 inches, and I'm going to take the measurement from this side and I'm going to mark 7 inches. Wherever 7 inches is what I'm going to mark. Grab the opposite panel and I'm going to single crochet the 2 ends of it all the way to the very end. And this opening right here is going to be where my arms are going to go through. But you can make this wide, you don't have to make this small. You can make this wide if you want to. So for this, I'm going to grab my 3mm. I'm still using a 3mm, by the way. And for the attachment, I like to just switch in between the colors so I can get a flawless attachment. Because if I use one color for this, when you turn this over, you are going to have something looking funny. Your work is going to be looking a little bit funny. So I'm just going to attach my yarn. So if you are at this point, obviously you're going to use the yarn, whatever side you are going to use that exact yarn for this part. So what I'm going to do is, I did show this in the skirt tutorial, so if you haven't seen that one, you can check that out, but I'm going to show you guys again just in case you're making this for the first time. You're going to just single crochet just the way you'd usually do until you get to the end of the collar. So just grab a yarn, stitch from one end, a stitch from the opposite end, and you want to make sure your stitches are straightened. So you want to make sure that the edge of this collar aligns with the edge of the collar on the opposite side, because if not, it's going to look a little bit uneven. So right into that last space, I am going to go back into it just so I make sure that last single crochet stitch is super secure. So right there I have 2 loops. All I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my second yarn and I'm going to pull through with that. So now I have the yarn on the crochet hook, and I like to just grab the edge of the second yarn and pull that through. And I'm going to go, this is going to be my new working yarn, obviously. So what I'm going to do from here on is I am going to just go ahead and single crochet, and I also have the edge of this working yarn, and I like to just grab both. So the working yarn is on this side while the excess yarn is this, and then the second working yarn, because I still need this yarn to finish off the side, so I don't want to cut it. But you can do that, honestly, you can also do that, but I just don't see the need for it. So rather I'm making a mistake. I am going to grab these 2, and this is going to be my working yarn. But I like to just grab 3 of them, but I just play around with them depending on the way you hold your crochet hook. And now you use this finger, so you're going to just see, you can see that the crochet hook is going underneath the yarn, and that is just going to secure the yarn until you get to the opposite side, because you're going underneath with your stitches, right? So you're going into a stitch on this side, a stitch on the opposite side, and you're making sure the crochet hook goes underneath those 2 yarn. Grab your working yarn and single crochet. You're going to do this until you get to the end of this color. Just for reference, you can always leave this yarn after a few stitches, because at that point it is actually secure. So you don't have to drag that all the way to the very end. It's honestly not necessary, because eventually you're going to cut that off. So right there you can see that I just came back to the last stitch on the second color. I'm going to go back into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull through, and from there, when I have 2 loops, I'm going to drop this, because this is going to be my new working yarn, and I'm going to grab that as my new working yarn. Again, this is what it looks like from the back. This is already excess, so I have to cut this off. So we only have this and this now. So this is my new working yarn which means this is going to be the excess yarn that I will be going under with my crochet hook. So I'm just going to repeat this until I finish the second color, and when I get to the edge, just the same way I did, I'm going to switch back to the other color and repeat this until I get to the very end. So I know that I'm done with this color, which means I can now cut this off. Really, I just still like to leave a long loop so I can actually just attach that as well, and don't cut it super short. So I'm still going to go over that loop with my next few stitches, but I don't have to drag that all the way to the very end because again I don't need it anymore. So I usually just like to go in above that stitch with 2 to 3 4 stitches, and then just to make sure it's secure, and then I'm going to just abandon that and just do my usual single crochet with my working yarn now, because I'm just making my way up until the very end. And just like that, it is complete, and this is what it looks like. This is what I mean by switching from the one yarn to the other yarn, just easily blends the color perfectly. So I'm going to do the exact step for my opposite panel, and I'll see you guys when I put my opposite side, and I'll see you guys when both of them are attached before we start the next step. Hey guys, so this is what your panel should look like after you single crochet the two ends together. Now to work on the neck panel and the waist panel. They are exactly the same thing, the only difference is the size wise and the length wise. So the neck panel is about 20, I think 40 chains if I'm not mistaken, and the lower panel is about 15 chains. That's the only difference. So let's go to the table and start, and the attachment is just going to be the same, but I'll show you guys of course how you can get that done. But for now, you can also put this on now and see if it fits you fine, and if it doesn't, you can do any readjustment before we finally attach the neck and the waist panel, because if you do that, I'm sure you wouldn't want to take everything out and start everything again. So I suggest you do that. Do I have to? Yeah, but am I going to? No. You guys did see that my neck and my waist panel was done with the other color, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I will be using this color to demonstrate exactly what I did. So just wanted to mention that in case you're wondering why am I using a different color. That is the reason. To get started, I am using the 3.5 as well. I am going to make a slip knot. And again, like I said, for the waist panel, you are going to chain a total of 15, while for the neck panel, you are going to chain a total of 41. And this should be about 4 inches. After chaining 15, you are going to go into the second chain with your first stitch, which is going to be a single crochet stitch. So you're going to go into that stitch with your single crochet, and into the next with one single crochet, and as always you are going to repeat one single crochet until you get to the very end of the row. And at the very end, you should have a total of 14 single crochet stitches. So this is what you should have after your first row. For row 2, you're going to chain 1, and this is going to be a slip stitch row. So we are going to go into the back loop of row 1. So right into this loop, this is the back loop, you are going to insert a slip stitch. And a slip stitch is basically insert your crochet hook, grab the yarn, and you're going to pull through. Just simple. You are going to insert one slip stitch into every back loop of the previous row, and at the end of this row you want to still have 14 chains. So if you want to use a stitch marker to mark your very first stitch, then do so, and that is going to guide you to know exactly where to end and where to finish and where to start your row. So just repeat one single crochet until you get to the very end of the row. So right there I am at the end of row 2, which is my slip stitch row. We are going to be alternating between row 1 and row 2, which is basically a single crochet row and a slip stitch row. but you want to make sure that you're chaining one at the beginning of each row and you're going into the back loop. So for row 3 we are going to do a single crochet row. So you're going to go into this very first stitch into the back loop with your first single crochet, and you are going to grab another stitch marker and mark that very first stitch, and that is going to guide you as well as the way this is guiding you at the opposite side. From there on, you are going to insert one single crochet into every slip stitch into the back loop. Like, basically it's super simple. And again, at the end of this row you still want to keep the same amount. So in my case I had 14 stitches, so I want to make sure I still have 14 at the very end of this row. Hey guys, so I have my waist I have my waist panel and I have my neck panel. Again, like I said, the only difference between these two is the lengthwise and also the size wise. Like, it's literally the same pattern, and this is what I mean by the pattern would eventually coil up, but you can say that it doesn't really matter because that's just the way it actually works. So if you eventually wear this or block this, it is just going to be the right length. My waist is just, again, like I mentioned in the previous clip, I decided to do a total of 20 inches because this stretches all the way to 30 inches. So just stretch the pattern. You also don't want to stretch it too much because if you do, I just don't think it's necessary. So don't do it too much, but just stretch it a little bit just so you have an idea of exactly how much the waistband can eventually stretch up to. So now we are going to go ahead and attach the waistband, and then we'll attach the neck panel right after. So to do that, you're going to grab 3 stitch markers. That we are going to grab stitch markers and we are going to mark the band. And the reason why I'm using the stitch marker is because obviously the band is not up to the size of the top at this point, but of course it stretches up to the size. So you want to use stitch markers to just help you with attaching the band, because if you just randomly start with the attachment, you will kind of have some issues along the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my band into 2. So right there is an opening. I still haven't attached those 2 together yet, and that is fine because we're going to do that a bit later. On this folded side, I am going to mark one side, and I'm going to just attach that to the side of the panel. So basically where the seam is on the side. And that is going to guide me to make sure that this side should be attached to that side. And then coming to this side, I am going to flip this over and grab one side of this panel. Since I still haven't attached the 2 ends together, I am going to grab that and attach that to the opposite side of the seam, and that is also going to guide me to make sure that I have to attach those 2 ends to this opposite side, and that automatically balances the band around the top. Lastly, I am going to use the front as a guide. Right at the front, I'm actually going to attach this side as well, honestly. I did not want to, but I think it's the best because then it's going to guide me way better. So I'm going to attach the next stitch marker on this opposite side of the edge, and I'm going to attach that again to the seam area right there. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitch markers. We have 3 stitch markers, sorry. So single crochet stitches are eventually going to be aligned with the seam on the opposite side, the seam actually. So what I do is I'm going to just flip this band over. So eventually when I single crochet, the seam is going to align with this seam on the inside, which is just perfect. Just perfect, guys. It is just perfect. So to do that, all you are going to do, I think my yarn messed up now. Let me just fix this because this is a mess. I said you want to flip your entire panel over, or what you can also do is turn this panel into the wrong side, honestly, then you don't have to do the flip method. I did not think about that, so sometimes I can just not think right. So right now I have my yarn attached to the panel and to the band, right? So all I'm going to do is just the same way we single crochet the 2 sides. You're going to chain 1 and just carefully, guys, like I can't even say this in any better way, you're just carefully going to single crochet those two together, and this stitch marker is going to guide you to make sure that the entire front of this panel has to fit the entire front of the band. So if you have to stretch the band to make sure you're doing this, make sure you do that. But you're going to just go into a stitch on the panel, a stitch on the band, and you single crochet that. And also don't forget to stretch your band as you go, because you want to make sure that the band that is 20 inches can actually fit around this measurement. Like that's the goal. And again, you guys know that I did use my bust measurement, which means the panel is not 30 inches like my waistband, and that's the reason why we're using the band, so we can have that. So you're just going to just grab a stitch on one end, a stitch on the opposite end, and single crochet all that. I'm going to make my way up until the very first marker, stitch marker, and I'll show you guys what where exactly it looks like. Hey guys, so I just finished the very first half. I just wanted to show you guys exactly what it looks like. So right here you can see the same as inside, but when you flip this over, you get this snatched waist, which is so cute. I love it. So now we are going to just do the same thing on the opposite side. So all I'm going to do is I still have a yarn here. I'm going to just leave that. Because of the way I started, I have to start on the side again, because I eventually have to sew in these two together. So if you did that beforehand, all you have to do is just go around that. Again, just something you have to skip. Don't be like me. So I'm just going to now do the exact same thing I just did, which is reattach my yarn on the side of the seam, and I'm going to just single crochet carefully, single crochet the back side of the panel to the band all around, and I'll see you guys when that is complete. So I am actually coming to the very end, which means now I can take off these two stitch markers. So I'm just gonna grab those bad boys out of the WhatsApp group. So right here I finished single crocheting the band to the panel. So now I'm just going to drag the single crochet along to single crochet the two ends of the panel together. So wherever I think I have excess here left somewhere, that is enough. So I'm going to use this. You should have something like this after attaching the band to the panel. You can also put this on now and see if the waist actually fits you before you decide to go to the final step. So for the final step, we are now going to attach this band, this neck panel to the panel. And to honestly know how long you need to make this, you just have to, let me grab my measurement tape. I did a total of 68 rows for my band, and I think because of the pattern, you can also do the same thing, and it should be able to fit around the neckline. It should. Or what you can also do is take the measurement around the circumference of the band of the neckline. So in your case, you are going to start from this end. From this end, you are going to take the measurement. This, we already know it's a 3 inches measurement. So this is 3. From down here up to the shoulder panel, it is another 3 inches. So we know this is 6. And this is 7. This should also be 3 inches. And this is also 3. So we have 3, 3, which will give us 6 and 13. 3, 3 will give us 19. So you know the panel, the neck panel has to be about 19 inches. And because obviously we did use the pattern slip stitch and single crochet, this is stretchy, so you want to keep that in mind. So you can see that this pattern is about 14 inches, but I know it does stretch all the way up to 19 inches, so it's perfect. And again, for reference, I did a total of 68 rows, including the single crochet and the slip stitch row. So now we are going to attach this to the neck, and to do that we are going to be needing the help of few stitch markers, just the same way we did for the for the neck, for the waist panel, right? After straightening this, you're going to find the center of this neck panel, and to do that, all you have to do is fold this into two, and we are going to mark the center of the panel. And this is going to be a guide for us to know that the center has to be around the center of the back, right? So now grab your measurement tape again, and we are going to mark the center on the back panel. So again, it's a 7.5 inches wide, which means the half of it should be about the same, 3.5. So 3.5 will give you a total of 7. So I'm guessing it should be about 3.8. So this end, which means the stitch marker on the center of the neck panel does align with the center of the back. So you're going to just open the stitch marker and mark that stitch. And so now that we have the center marked, the next step we have to do is mark this end, and then finally this end. We are going to do this for one side first, and then we'll do the rest later. So now you are going to, the side from here to here is a 3.8 inches, right? So what you're going to do with your panel, you're going to mark that on the band. So in the stretch form, you're going to stretch up the band, and 3.8 should be about this end. Honestly, there is no exact way to show you guys this. You're just going to eye mark and do exactly what I'm doing, and you're going to mark that. And this is going to guide you to know that you have to fold your pattern. So from here on, you can just do the same thing by aligning these two, and then you can mark the edge of this as well. Do I have more stitch markers? I don't. Of this side with another stitch marker, and you're going to mark, finally you're going to mark this with a stitch marker. But you don't have to do this now. Now you're going to grab your yarn and you are going to attach that. I will be using this color for this pattern. I did say that if you're working on a color, then it would be nice for you to just switch the colors, but because the entire pattern itself is already, what's up with you? I'm going to grab the yarn and I'm going to go into that very first stitch on the side of the panel right there, and I'm going to grab the edge of this neck panel. Grab the yarn and I'm going to attach those two with a knot, and you can just go ahead and secure the knot with a few more knots just to make sure it's not going anywhere. And just like that, I have the side secure, right? So now we want to make sure we single crochet the band to the neck panel. Ignore the side of the panel for now because we're going to eventually do the side, but I just wanted to do one side so it will be super easy for you to do the next side. So because we want the seam to be eventually overlap, this is eventually going to overlap around your neck like this. So the seam has to be on this side instead of this side. Usually your seam can be on the side, but because this neck panel is going to overlap, which means it's eventually going to cover the seam, we are going to do the seam on this side. And to do that, all you're going to do is you're going to grab your working yarn, go into that very first space. You're doing exactly what we've been doing by single crocheting the band onto the panel. And again, the stitch markers are going to guide you along the way, so you know exactly how much you need to single crochet from this point to this point, from this point to this point. That's the reason why I use stitch markers to mark those sides. So you're seeing me going into a space on this panel, a space on the band, and I'm going to just grab my working yarn and single crochet. But of course, keep in mind that you can also use a slip stitch for this method as well. I'm going to single crochet those two, single crochet those two, up until I get to the first stitch marker. So you're going to take off your stitch marker and you are going to repeat the same step until you get to the second stitch marker. So for the second space, you're just going to slightly bend your work if you have to, and just repeat the attachment method, which is basically grab a stitch on the pattern, a stitch on the band, and single crochet these two up until you get to the other stitch marker. Here I am coming to the second stitch marker, and I just wanted to show you guys exactly what it's looking like so far. So we have a seam, and if you flip this over, this is going to be the seamless part, right? So we are going to now take off the second stitch marker, and we are going to work our way to the center, and I'll see you guys at the center, because from the center we are going to do the same exact step, which is calculating how much we need from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. So I'll see you guys when that is complete. Guys, right here I am at this stitch marker. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to draw a long loop, and again, like I said, we're going to do the same exact step. So I have these stitch markers, which means from here to here I am just going to grab my measurement tape again. I know from here to here is a 3.8 inches. I am going to mark 3.8 inches on the band in the stretch form, obviously, and that should be about this edge. And I know I am going to grab my stitch marker and mark that at the edge. And just the same thing I did, guys, that's the exact step that I will be doing for this. You just want to make sure you're marking. And from here on, you can either use the same 3 inches measurement or just stretch that, because you don't entirely have to use a measurement tape for that. And you're going to lock that in. Lastly, I'm going to grab the last edge of it and just lock that in as well. Well, I don't really have to do that, because when I get to this point I know I just have to. But let's just do it for the purpose of this tutorial, and you're going to lock that in. And just like that, super simple, you are now going to just take off the stitch marker, because I'm at this point. So currently at this point, which means I don't no longer need the stitch marker, and I can take this one off and just continue to single crochet until I get to the very edge of it. Hey guys, so I finally decided that it's going to remain a sleeveless vest or top, whatever this is going to be called, but I do feel like I want to add I-cord around these two sides, so I can tie this whenever I want to, or I can just leave it like this whenever I want to. So that is exactly what we're going to do. So you're going to still grab your 3.5 millimeter and whatever color you decide to use. So to get the I-cord done, you want to leave a long loop, long enough. I can't really tell how long, but you just have to leave a long enough loop. And we are going to start by inserting the crochet hook into this space on the pattern. So now you're going to grab the yarn and make a slip knot. So you need to have the yarn on the crochet hook. From here on, you have two loops, right? So this going to the left is my working yarn, and this is the loop that I decided to leave. So you want to make sure you're holding two of them like this, so it's easy for you to go around. So to work the I-cord, you're going to go into the loop yarn. So we're going to call this a loop yarn, and this is the working yarn. So you're going in like this. Again, you're going to go in like this, and when you have the yarn wrapped around, you're going to now go around the working yarn, and you're going to pull through all two loops right there. Again, you're going to go into the loop yarn like this, grab the working yarn again, and pull through all two loops. Again, go through the loop yarn like this, grab the work. You want to make sure your tension is tight, so not too loose. Grab the working yarn and pull through like that. Keep the same tension throughout so you can have the same cord right there. So go through like this, go through the working yarn and pull both through. And you're going to repeat this until this cord is long enough. I like the fact that it's thin and also not too big. Also, you don't want to make this super long, so you just want to do a decent length so you will be able to tie this at the very end. And just like that, you are just going to make this long enough. I think I want mine to just land right at the very edge of the top. I don't want it to be longer, so I'm just going to cut off both ends of the loop, and I'm going to just chain one and fix that. And of course, I'm going to attempt to sew in the loose ends before I cut off the excess. Okay, so this is the final look. I decided to do the two string of I-cord, and with this you can just make a knot, but honestly I would say this is just optional. When I did put this vest on, I just thought like having a knot at the center will just make it a little bit more cuter, so that's the reason why I decided to add the cord. But you don't have to if you don't want to. But this is the final look. Let me know what you guys think, and as always, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know down below. And I know you guys have already seen what it looks like, so I don't have to show you guys. But let me know if you make this. Of course, tag me on Instagram as well at Mihankushea, because I would love to see your color combinations and also how it looks on you. So I'll see you guys in my next video, in my next tutorial. Bye bye.